Welcome back, AP. All right, well, it's about it's like 7:30 in the morning right now. I don't think I've ever done a flip this early, and also I'm like violating. Actually, wait a minute. No, my clock's off. It's 8 o'clock 8:11 in the morning. That was the first bell. I know I'm already violating some rules with this AP flip because I'm letting you see the words on the screen. However, I'm going to let it fly simply because this is some very complex stuff. All right, because remember what we picked up on yesterday. We were talking about how the Renaissance really has to do a lot less with just a reflowering of intelligence. It has a lot more to do with the early onsets of capitalism, with making money, with the ideas of being able to finance art, right? So the art is more the symbol. Like, if you ask me as a history teacher or as a historian, I would say the Renaissance is not necessarily a rebirth of art and intelligence. I'd say the Renaissance is more of a rebirth of complex economic systems, right? So we talked about how we think initially, like, it was the early onsets of capitalism. People were reinvesting in their land, and then like that was all kicking up during the Middle Ages, and then during the late Middle Ages, the crisis of the Middle Ages, the 100 Years' War, the Black Death, all that stuff. It's going to weaken the power of the lords and the monarchies, but it is going to push the economy forward, right? So make sure you know that. Push the economy forward. It's going to throw it into high gear, right? And the reasons why is because all of these people are now leaving these big fiefs and lands and manor systems. The serfs are leaving because of labor shortages in other areas. They have the ability now to demand higher wages for their labor, especially if it's specific, if they're in a craft guild and they have a trade, right? Like my name tag too, by the way. But anyway, so they have all of this ability now, and these terrible crises during the late Middle Ages probably hastened the growth of the economy, right? On the person-to-person level, as in the me to you, the family, the Medicis to the Fuggers to the Sforza level, right? Less about the kings and the Pope, now much more about the individual, right? Really, really quickly, just somewhere nearby in your notes, just write the word individual and circle it like 18 times, right? The Renaissance is what it's all about. It's all about the individual. It's all about the person. You're humanist. You, what can you do? You standing out from everybody else, right? So, anyway, like I said in class, there are new trade routes and new shifts because shrinking markets, smaller profits, and keener competition is going to lead to a lot more efficient business techniques, right? Because look at it. These three things would deter the economy, right? There's a smaller market. Oh, God, that means I have to be better at my product. Smaller profits. Oh, man, I got to make something even better now to make more money. Keener competition. That guy knows how to make the thing that I know how to make. Right? So new business techniques are going to rise up to try and separate the weak from the strong. Yeah, right? So new trade routes and new ships, right? So intercoastal trading year-round, and also they're going to go to different places and new and different areas and bring luxury items back, right? Sedentary merchants and resident agents we talked about in class as well. Sedentary merchants and resident agents has to do with the immobility or mobility of certain people in their business, right? The commenda system, right? I didn't go over that as much as I should have in class, so this is really important that you pay attention, really important that you take good notes, really important that you star this thing, okay? The commenda system is the idea of the middleman, all right? It's the early onset idea of a trade business, right? So we would have Shannon in class, right? She owns a trade company. She owns several ships. But here's the problem. She's one person. She cannot take one ship individually to a bunch of different trade routes, right? So she's going to hire Chris Shiguski, Mike Massera, Nathan Hobbs as her middlemen, right, as part of her commenda system. And she tells them, take this shipment of, what am I looking at? I have a bagel for breakfast. Take this shipment of bagels and bananas and donuts to ports in England, France, and Spain, okay? And if you do that and you bring me the money back successfully, I will give you a third of it, right? So that's the commenda system, because here's the thing. In the grand scheme of things, she is only paid out of her total profit 30%, and she retains 66% of it, right? So, or 33.333333%. You know what I'm saying, though. But anyway, Also, because of her industrialness, now the McHugh family is rising up, right? That's a big thing of family firms. Family firms be able to kind of get into these niche businesses, and they used to kind of corner the market. A lot like early monopolies, but it wasn't so much of a monopoly because there were different families from different countries, right? The Medici family actually early on made their money in banking and textiles, and we'll talk about that later on when we get to Lorenzo and Cosimo. Anyway, now, warehouse inventory is also a huge thing too. People like Shannon are gonna like change their inventory up a little bit. They're gonna think about, well, I don't want to ship food so much anymore, or spices, because they go bad, right? Like I want to ship something that's not gonna go bad. How about silk, right? I can warehouse silk and then I can sell it when the price is at its highest. So very, very keen business tactics. Also, new financial techniques for keeping track of monetary values and actual physical money are going to come around. Double entry bookkeeping is a really, really cool one. So double entry bookkeeping, this is the best example for this. Have you ever heard of the phrase Black Friday? All right, so that is actually a holdout from double entry bookkeeping. All right, so you're like, no, it's not. Well, yeah, it is. Check it out. So in a book, in an accounting book, whenever you put in a credit, you put it in red. And when you put in a debit, you put it in black, all right? So they call it Black Friday, or a profit is in black. They call it Black Friday because it's the very first time during the year that most businesses go into the black, which is they're making money, like excessive amounts of money, right? So double entry bookkeeping was a system of debits and credits, right? So for example, if Shannon also then, like, let's say she was paid by Nathan, that's going to go in as her debit, and that actually, the word debit is Latin for he owes, as you can see right here, and then, but hypothetically, let's say Sarah said, oh wait, how about can you pay me up front? That's a credit, right? So she would, like, and credit in Latin means he trusts, okay? So they would actually have two books, and this is what the double entry books looked like right here. It was a much more keen financial keeping technique. So there was also a credit problem with coinage, because due to the fact that, like, physical money was so much bigger, so credit became a thing. Credit and loans, these two things, credit and loans became tactics that banks used to use. Fronting people money because of the fact that the credit problem with coinage was there wasn't enough money. There wasn't enough money floating around out in the system to be able to pay these people for their services. So credits and bank loans were a very, very big thing. So bills of exchange is another big thing as well. That's like a receipt or a proof of purchase. There's also money lenders versus usury, and then the investing money idea. We'll talk about the Barty example in class tomorrow, all right? But investing money became a very, very huge thing as well. So, all right, so picking back where we left off. Yeah, I'm down here now. Anyway, so Europe also is going to be divided and weakened during the 14th and 15th centuries. Now, we've talked about this stuff already, right? I feel like if I should just, like talk to you like this, it might be kind of awkward, though, right? A lot of eyebrow movements. Anyway, now, so really, really quickly, very, very, very divided and very, very weak. When I say weakened and divided, next to weakened, maybe you should write the papacy also, or the church, and the monarchies, right? So these big superpowers were the ones that were weakened. And we know all of this stuff, right? You need to know the impact of the plague on European development. As we know, it like split it up. It actually may have possibly hastened the economy a little bit person to person. However, the biggest problem was population decreases, labor shortages, things like that, right? So the other big impact of the ecclesial crisis, which was between Boniface and Philip the Fair, Unum Sanctum, right? Papal supremacy, like one church. Babylonian captivity, you know about, the Great Schism Conciliar movement. That's going to split up the power of the church, right? And that's going to give them a lesser reputation in Europe and an inability to collect tithes as easily as they once did, right? So, and then also, as we know that the three significant Marsiglio, Padua, John Wycliffe, and John, that's supposed to be, well, Jan is like Czech for John, so a lot of people put John Hus. A lot of people put Marsilio as well for Marsiglio. But anyway, so just remember that you need to kind of know these things and how they affected the economy, right? So also really quick, we need to talk about the political situation in Italy, right? Because the birthplace of the Renaissance was in Italy. And the major causes for despotism, right? So despotism was the idea of a despot or a ruler over each of these individual city-states in northern Italy. So a lot of it has to do with the following four things. Urban warfare, class warfare, and family feuds. Now, the Guelphs and the Ghibellines, that's a little bit of a different story, and I'll tell you about that real quick. So the Guelphs and the Ghibellines were two separate families in Italy. One of them supported the papacy and the papal states, and the other one supported the Holy Roman Empire. And it all has to do with this thing. It was called the investiture crisis. It was when kings began to try and promote bishops and cardinals and priests through the ranks of the Catholic Church so they could have people more loyal to them in the church. Okay, so they would pass laws, help them out, help push things along that may be in the favor of the king or queen or ruling family at the time. That was the investiture crisis, right? But it eventually broke out into full-scale warfare, where an army but from the Catholic Church and an army from the Holy Roman Empire squared off against each other, financed by these two families, the Guelphs and the Ghibellines. So as you can tell, Italy's pretty traumatic, right? There's a lot of urban warfare, there's class warfare, there's family feuds. It's a very, very intense situation, right? But remember, this kind of stuff, though, is going to help make money, all right? Especially because it's going to occupy some of those lords and noble families. And it's going to give the ability for common families to come in and make some cash, right? So anyway, to keep going, though. Oh, wow, way too small. All right, anyway. So, the Babylonian captivity, the kingdom of the two Sicilies. Well, we kind of talked about that already. I'm going to skip it. Anyway, so there we go. You need to know the political situation in Italy as in accordance to the map of Italy, right? So if you look at this map real quick, you'll notice that there are three key parts, okay? There is the kingdom of the two Sicilies, there's the Papal States, and then there's all of this stuff, right? So we're going to stop here for today right after I explain it. But anyway, the kingdom of the two Sicilies was down here at Kingdom of Naples and the Sicily Island down at the bottom. Mostly agricultural, not a whole lot of business practices, just some small ports. The Papal States concern, again, primarily with the collecting of tithes and the betterment of the church, okay? And then up here, though, this is the broken up areas because it was made up into a small city-states. Sorry for the typo. But a bunch of small city-states up here. And this is what you need to write down. The big three city-states in this region of Italy that are going to be the birthplaces of the Renaissance are the city-states of Florence, Milan, and Venice. All right, so we will get into them tomorrow, talk about their political situation and how that affected the spurring and the growth of the Renaissance as well. But you really need to know like what the political situation in Italy was like with a lot of class warfare and things like that. You really need to know going forward that the 14th and 15th centuries left the monarchies and the Pope and the papacy very, very divided and very severed, and so it actually gave way for other common people to come in and start making their own money. And then you need to also know the last thing that the tragedies of the late Middle Ages actually probably spurred the economy forward instead of rather stopping it. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know this stuff can be confusing, but we're going to lay it all out again tomorrow, okay? So make sure you have this stuff. I'll see y'all then, Camden Catholic, or AP.